Here we go. It's almost time for the show, but I want to take a few seconds here to talk about vigilantes. If you are not, right there, man, if you are not a vigilante, why not? It's $5 a month. It is less than the cost of a cup of coffee, and there is so many benefits. The biggest benefit being you get to connect to like-minded individuals who think the same way that you think. And it's a powerful, powerful place to be. The Discord is where all of the interaction is going on. There is so much going on in there, it's hard to explain. And the only way to be a part of it is to get on the Patreon so that you can get access to the Discord channel. It is a good time. Go become a part. There's new stuff we're working on. Last week, we had a Vigilante meetup in Louisiana at the Lift conference. It was a phenomenal time. And the Vigilantes and I got to sit there and discuss, hey, how can we make these even better? How can we make these even better? And we did. We decided a way to give the Viceroy solid rules and ways to host the meeting, how to have the open with the toast and close with the creed, and what to do with the coins and the numbered coins and the challenges involved. It was a good time, man, to make it even better. They're doing stuff like working on building the V drive, putting together all this knowledge and files that they're building together. Currently, they're collecting blueprints and plans to work for the work of search, which is the supplement, the drill supplement for the book of search. It's going to be coming out soon. They're working on putting that together. It's just phenomenal what they got going on. Not to mention, you get swag discounts, access to the Vigilante only shop, access to the after parties, and of course, the Vigilante meetups. It's amazing. If you're not a part, why not? I have to ask you that. If you're still only on the Facebook, man, get with the times, get on the Patreon so you can be in the Discord. Do it. Quit faffing about. Patreon.com/thevigilantes. Go join so you can get in the Discord. Right now, we're currently doing a V50. There's like 35 of us doing a V50 together. We're on day 2 today, and we got 48 days to go, but already it's challenging me, and the accountability is amazing. So if you want to find like-minded souls, patreon.com/thevigilantes. I'll see you on the Discord.
Introducing the affordable Standpipe prop, another innovative solution by Affordable Drill Towers. The affordable Standpipe prop is a realistic training prop that allows you to conduct real-world training in your classroom and flow water in your parking lot. Crafted with efficiency and affordability in mind, the affordable Standpipe prop is designed to meet the needs of engine company training. We took the fire suppression system of a 7-story building, compressed it into 4.5 feet, and mounted it horizontally on our proprietary cart. For durability, the manifold is constructed of 4-inch Schedule 40 galvanized pipe with 7 2.5-inch outlets. Enjoy effortless maneuverability from 4 heavy-duty casters, 2 that are fixed and 2 that swivel with double locking brakes makes wheeling this prop a breeze. Yet, the locking casters prevent movement when flowing water. The entire unit is sandblasted. An epoxy powder coat finish is applied, followed by a red top powder finish. 2 reinforced shelves allow for transport and storage of fire hose, appliances, and tools. The basic model includes a 2.5-inch Siamese fire department connection, 6 2.5-inch angle hose valves, a system pressure gauge, and a sprinkler head with a control valve and water motor gong. The 7th outlet comes capped. The affordable Standpipe prop is available with your choice of Fireground adjustable pressure reducing valves from Elkhart Brass, Zurn, and Giacomini. You can also add the Dixon PRD, a screw-on adjustable pressure restricting device, a 7th standard hose valve, an additional sprinkler head, or the optional speed swivel appliance that can be used on the FDC. We pressure test the affordable Standpipe prop to 300 PSI so that you can pump realistic Fireground pressures. If you need custom threads, a specific FDC, have any questions, or need a quote, just let us know. Elevate your training regimen with the affordable Standpipe prop, setting a new standard in fire department training excellence. Reach us at 84455 Towers or info@affordabledrilltowers.com.
Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance. It is weekly scrap number 288, officially Mega Scrap Golf. My guests tonight are a motley bunch of rapscallions, and I really wanted to say rapscallions. We got Chief David Rhodes, Todd Edwards, Chris Wessels, Clark Glass. They have an astonishing 135 years combined in the fire service. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here at the beginning on introductions. This is a first for the scrap ever to try and do this many guests, as well as focus on one single incident and the people that were involved in that incident. So these are the guests right here, all four of them surrounding. And I'm going to go in alphabetical order and have each guest just basically do a quick, short 1 or 2 sentence introduction of themselves as we kick this off. I'm going to start alphabetically. Todd Edwards, introduce thyself.
Todd Edwards, retired from Atlanta Fire Rescue after 30 plus years. Lucky, blessed, and fortunate to still get to be very actively involved in the American Fire Service with teachings and attending classes and ride outs and a whole host of other things. And that's pretty much it for now.
Love it. Clark Glass, my man, introduce yourself.
Started in the fire service in 97. I've been with the city of Atlanta for 20 years. It's my 20th year, and I'm currently serving as the captain of Company 14.
Nice. Very, very nice. Going to Chief David Rhodes.
I've been in the fire service 39 years now, 36 active. Currently editor-in-chief, fire engineering, vice president of education and content for all the brands in FDIC. And just a correction, those 130 whatever years, you didn't count them as Atlanta years, which are like dog years. So multiply that by 7.
So nearly a millennium.
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful. Chris Wessels.
Chris Wessels, 34 years active in the fire service, 28 in Civ Atlanta, retired in 2020. I stay active in the fire service, helping with the Georgia Flames program and Axioms of Leadership.
Love it, man. So there you go. These are the 4 guests that are going to be breaking down the Lullwater fire, and I'm pretty excited about it. Man, welcome my brothers, Todd, Clark, David, and Chris as the guests of Weekly Scrap number 288. Mega Scrap Golf is officially underway, all about the Lullwater fire. Is there anything you feel like needs to be added before we get going? Anything on the intros that you want to add?
No, I'm good, Corley.
All right. Audience, get your questions primed and ready for the takeaways, the lessons learned. We've never done this before, so you're along for the ride, just like the guests, just like me, just like Sam. We're going to figure out how we're going to make this work. We're going to have some fun. So let's talk about those beautiful sponsors, get those done so we can get to the scrap. Affordable Drill Towers, on a mission to bring you cost-effective and versatile training props like the Affordable Bailout Prop, which allows you to practice window bailouts, ladder bailouts, and ladder high-point rescues. They also make the Affordable Standpipe Prop, which you can roll into the classroom for standpipe theory and then roll it into the parking lot and pump realistic flows and pressures. And of course, their mainstay, the Affordable Drill Tower. It comes in several configurations and standard with the Standpipe system. You can choose from 1 or 2 sets of stairs integrated into your existing Connex boxes for multi-story access or freestanding on a slab. All models are NFPA 1402 compliant and gain you ISO credit. The only thing that you can't do on an affordable drill tower is live fire training. Call Steve, 844-55-TOWER, or drop an email to info@affordabledrilltowers.com. FDIC International is where the fire and rescue service come together. Be there April 7th through the 12th, 2025 at the Indiana Convention Center to learn from the best, see the most innovative products and services from leading companies, and recharge your passion for the industry. Speaking of FDIC, join Snap-Tight Hose there at FDIC in Indianapolis to witness their American-made top-tier hose solutions. Stop by their indoor booth where you can delve into their complete product range. You can have all your questions answered by their professionals. Then head outside and make sure to visit their outdoor booth for live hose demonstrations. Don't just hear about it. Get an up-close look at how Snap-Tight products perform under real-world conditions. At Snap-Tight, they take pride in American craftsmanship and unmatched durability. Come see how Snap-Tight is supporting those on the front lines to protect what matters most. Snap-Tight Hose, reliable, durable, and ready when you are. And finally, firestationfurniture.com. They provide a complete line of quality furniture for your firehouse. Firefighter owned and operated. They understand the strain firefighters put on furniture and offer furniture that's built to last. Visit firestationfurniture.com for more information. And there we go. With that being said, the bills are paid and we're ready to scrap. And never done this type of scrap before. I think I mentioned that. So we're going to have some fun and hopefully pass a lot of knowledge and lessons learned from the Lullwater fire. So it is March 25th, 2014. March 25th, 2014. That's where I want the 4 guest mind frame to be. 834 Lullwater Road. Starting with each of you, I'll start off by saying, what was each person's position that day at that incident? What role did you feel initially?
Yeah, I was dispatched along with full assignment, and Atlanta at that time and still today sent 2 battalion chiefs. This alarm was kind of right outside my first due district, but I ended up being the first battalion chief on scene and assumed incident command of the scene on my arrival.
So you were the initial company. You were initial command from the get go.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Glass.
Yes, I was backstep fireman, second best spot to be riding on in the fire service, second alarm unit. And our assignment was just basically go in and assist with fire attack on the second floor initially.
Perfect. Chief Rhodes.
I was the second due battalion chief. Actually, I think it's our territory, but we were on another run somewhere.
So you were the second BC on scene?
Yep. Which is, by definition, it's safety, but the way we always ran it, it's really sort of a division to a rear side of the building.
Gotcha. And finally, Chris.
I was a shift commander, and I picked up the call when it sounded like it was going to be a tactical challenge, big house, steep driveway far off the road. And when I was en route, Todd called for second alarm, which would have got me headed that way anyway. So when I arrived, if the battalion chiefs are doing what they're supposed to do, I rarely get command unless the situation just really dictates. So I jump in and help wherever they need help. And that's what I was doing that night.
Perfect. Okay, so we got the scene sort of set with what each person's role was. We'll set up the fire here shortly. I want to catch up with the audience because there's been so much chatter and a ton of it before the scrap started. But I want to say a few things out the gate. Rob Ramirez there said, get the notepad out. Absolutely. Get ready to take notes. McGinn says, looking good. Josh Everett said, good job. Rob Fisher said, let's walk the dog. So I know that's there for Todd. John M. Sullivan said the gruesome foursome. And so I can only assume he's talking about the 4 Atlantas. And Metro Atlanta Fools chimed in and said, LFG, these guys are literally my heroes. And you got a heart eyes emoji coming at you.
Sweet.
Their taste is suspect is all I'm saying. Love it. Okay, so we know what the initial commands were. Who would like to start off by describing the initial fire, the fire conditions, the initial challenges of the fire itself?
Yeah, I'll start. Got right pretty quick, along with the first arriving engine and truck. The first challenge was this neighborhood is all very high end, $1 million plus homes all throughout this neighborhood. First unit arrived and their size up was good. It wasn't the best size up, to be honest, but it was pretty decent size up. But I didn't have a full working knowledge. And part of that, some things I discussed when I talked about this fire before, being it was typically my second due, I did not have the same district knowledge that I had in my own district. So when I got there, I was a little taken aback when I got out of the car and realized just how big the structure was. And then based on the initial radio traffic of just smoke showing in that neighborhood, I took a immediate aggressive offensive attack and searches. That was the only thing going through my head, aggressive searches, because this is not a neighborhood that every other house is vacant like a lot of my district was. So this was, we got to get searches. And there's nobody out front on my arrival. So I was still limited in my scope just because of the way the house sat way up on a hill. I do not, I mean, that's a different subject matter, but I don't sit in the car. I get out of the car. My aide stays at the car and runs the command boards. I want as much visual as I can. So I had a pretty decent view of pretty much just the Alpha and the Bravo corner. I had no idea how deep the house was till Rhodey got there. And as soon as David got there, he hit the back end of the house. But because of the size and the challenges, struck a second alarm pretty early, but I had no visible fire on my arrival. Had a report of some visible fire on the Charlie side, but then I'll let David kind of jump in because he starts filling in a lot of the blanks for me initially, because we just pretty much ran our standard structure fire response. First thing is going to hit fire attack. We're going to have RIT, search, forcible entry by the heavy, and everything was just kind of going click, click, click like it typically does on this fire. So then Rhodey can kind of give you an idea of what he saw, because as soon as he arrived, we'd worked enough fires together. He didn't have to ask me. He just immediately went to the back of the building for me.
Gotcha. Real quick, before Chief Rhodes starts in, what was you said it was $1 million neighborhood. What was the approximate square footage? Was it a McMansion or just a large house?
It was a McMansion. It was 5,995 square feet.
Okay. So right at 6K.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. So standard, anytime got on with Todd, if he was first in, I would go to the back and give a report. And we did have fire showing in the second floor, and definitely fire in the attic. And wasn't long, and we started having slate roof tiles pop and start sliding off. That was the first hazard, and we didn't know it at the time because we were still doing searches, but the house was actually under renovation. But we had no knowledge of that. There wasn't signs out in the yard or anything. It wasn't until we got in. I think one of the interior crews actually notified us that there was scaffolding and stuff like that on the inside. So a lot of fire. We laddered the rear windows and tried to take some of the upstairs windows out, and found out they were metal casement windows. So that wasn't happening with a hook anyway. And so just sort of monitored conditions back there. And eventually I got in underneath the second floor. So it was sort of on the garage side, and I could see the kitchen area where the fire originated, and could tell it was in pretty good structural shape. They had already knocked that down, and then just managed and rotated crews out. It was a pretty lengthy firefight before we withdrew the first time because of the amount of fire that was in the attic. It was starting to burn off the roof in a couple of areas, and I think Chris had got there by that time, and all the second alarm companies. But there was a couple of rotations just for air supply that had to happen. And I think at the time, I want to say we had 3 1 3/4 interior, and all of them had come in through the front at that time.
And I think,
and it was an L. I'm sorry. It was an L-shaped house, so you couldn't tell that unless you were in the back. And it was 2-story across the whole L. Chris, you cut out.
I said, Todd, wasn't squad trying to get a 2.5?
That was later in the game. Their first assignment was search and forcible entry because the front door was pretty substantial, and something. And I don't want to get too far off into the deeper end of this yet, Corley, but one of the things that really occurred, and I talked about on the command side, was the little things that were being missed by myself and possibly some other people on the scene. Was when David gave me that report from the Charlie side, he made the statement that he had 20% involvement on first floor, and then he described the heavy smoke. And it wasn't just they said heavy smoke, he just really, really emphasized the word heavy on his radio transmission to me. And as soon as that left his mouth, fire came through the Alpha side roof. All this was happening like this. And, hindsight's, 2020, it's always easy to say, why didn't we catch this? And I didn't catch this. Was balloon framed. It literally started first floor, traveled to the second, was all the way in the attic and through the roof. And what David was seeing and what I was seeing was almost two different things based on the size of the structure. So that really, I feel like we operated in the early stages, the early attack and search stages. I'm a big believer that IC should be ahead of the incident. And I feel like I was a steady, every time I got a radar report, I took 2 steps backwards. Another radar report, 2 more steps backwards. I never could get quite caught up to the scene in all reality.
And I think that was the first fire any of us had in that neighborhood. I mean, that's not a neighborhood you even run an EMS call in.
No.
Solid.
Had to look it up on the map, kind of neighborhood.
Yeah, I did too.
Go ahead, Chris.
The fact that the driveway was so steep and up elevated off the road, that really hindered the hose stretches too. Because I know one line we were trying to get into the attic, they're just a little bit short, and it's not, again, with, like Todd said, for what we're used to is very atypical, because usually our hose stretches are not nearly that far and usually a lot more level ground, typically.
So lots of dominoes lining up.
And it was also a true wire lath ceiling and walls, no sheetrock. So it wasn't wood lath, it was wire lath.
Wow. For the ceilings?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
For
wow.
everything.
Everything. Is that a construction type you see a lot there in Atlanta?
Not that burns.
Fair enough.
That was the first one I'd ever encountered.
Yeah.
Someone asked a great question, which was, I lost it. Alan, he said, I may have missed it, but when was the house originally constructed? Any idea?
Early 1900s.
Yeah, early 1900s.
Okay.
Yeah.
The neighboring house, to kind of get some context to that neighborhood, one of the houses next door, that owner had to be detained by police because he was harassing me so bad. They actually filmed a majority of Driving Miss Daisy in the house right next door to that one. So it kind of gives you an idea what kind of neighborhood this is as far as affluence goes. But yeah, it was 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, just a monster house.
Monster house.
Ceilings. I think it was in the 20s. I think it was constructed in the 20s.
I think it was too.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Pulling up Sam's notes for my own perusal. Okay, so moving forward, it came in roughly 2,200.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was looking at on the memos and stuff.
Yeah, it was a nice evening.
Beautiful evening.
Weather had no factor in it. Wasn't cold, wasn't raining, wasn't snowing, nothing like that.
So how long initial, you had 3 lines going in the front. Chief Rhodes was in the back. You guys were seeing it expand into the attic. You had a good knock in the kitchen. I think you said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Initially. So how far are we into the fire at this point?
At this point, when it came through the alpha side roof, we were probably maybe 10 minutes in.
Okay, so it was
alarm units were getting on the scene, and we were still deploying. We were still in that offensive, and the searches weren't cleared yet either.
Mm-hmm.
So that was still a major factor in my size up, or in my strategy was we had to finish these searches. This house was just too big not to find somebody inside of it. But again, the disadvantage of being that far away really hindered me as far as recognizing some of the other things. And then I believe Chief Wessels arrived, and I immediately assigned him to take over Alpha Division because I needed another set of eyes closer to the building and the crews than I could possibly see from the street I was on. I was IC of. So Chris could probably jump in about what he saw on his initial when he got up to the front.
Like Todd said, by that point, the fire was starting to break through the roof. I briefly went inside to face with some crews because they were having trouble. Like I said, they couldn't quite get their line. They're trying to get to a scuttle to the attic because there's so much fire in the attic, and they just couldn't quite reach it. When I came back outside, I think Todd and I concurred about the same time we needed to either get something done with this push or pull out, because we started to see one of the dormers kind of slow motion sink in, collapse into the attic space. And we both kind of concluded if we don't jump on and get it within the next minute or two, that magic next one more minute.
Right. Almost got it.
That's what, yeah. But this one wasn't. It just, And it was unique. You know, I've seen a lot of partial roof collapses, but the way that dormer just kind of sank into the attic space is something I'd never seen before. And I think it's due to how heavy that building, that house was constructed. You know,
And you said it was slate. It was a slate tile roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
And they had just been replaced.
Yeah.
Just to give you a little context on the value of the house, the roof job was $160,000.
Yeah. John M. Sullivan wanted to know, was there sufficient water supply well established when it lit off?
Yes, 100%. There's Atlanta's overall hydrant system is spectacular.
Okay.
And in that area, all the hydrants are obviously well maintained. If one gets a scratch on it, somebody in that neighborhood is going to call and it's going to get fixed and repainted that day. So, yeah, we had positive water supply right out of the gate. So water was never an issue.
And then John M. Sullivan also said closest exposure. I'm guessing with a house this size, exposure was not an issue.
No, it was an issue, but it wasn't enough of an issue that we had to address it with any of the companies.
Okay. To glass, when you got there, what was your initial assignment?
Yeah, so we were just assigned, I think Chief Wessels actually assigned us just to go in and assist with fire attack, if I remember right. So we pulled a line in the A side, made our way to the second floor where the squad was already working. They were trying to open up and actually kind of started getting in the attic and started flowing water in the attic. So pretty simple job. And got water in the attic, and like they said, you know, it was a lot of square footage, not just square footage, but like cubic feet, just a huge amount of volume in a house that size in the attic, and all of it was involved. So the lines we had weren't doing a whole lot, plus it was pretty difficult to get it opened up enough where we needed it to be, just with it being that plaster metal mesh. I was kind of making fun of the guys that were in there working when we got there because they hadn't gotten more work done. I got embarrassed pretty quick on that one. So
No doubt about it.
That was it. Basically go in, assist with interior fire attack, took a line on the second floor and started flowing water.
Okay. So we have the stage set. You saw the dormer start sinking in and said, all right, you had a conversation with Edwards. Yes, Chris? Or was it?
Yeah, he transmitted over the radio
Okay.
what he was seeing. Him and Rhodey were having back and forth conversation because there again, the way the house was laid out in the L, where Rhodey was at and where Chris was at was just far enough that they couldn't face to face. So when he radioed that dormer was coming in, I had no vantage point of that time. So
Gotcha.
I walked down the street maybe 20 yards and I could see what Chris was telling me then.
Gotcha.
And then we made the order.
I couldn't see that either.
Yeah, from the Charlie, he had no idea what was going on the Alpha. So that, if you want to pinpoint a benchmark of a lesson learned, is that communication and taking these large scenes and dividing it into divisions is critical. Even I know we don't always think about it, house fires,
right?
Big house like this, McMansions, multifamilies. It was critical we did that, and I think that probably, save some ass right there too by doing it that way.
Well, let me ask. I want to dig in real quick and say, because it seems like as you guys talk about this, it was like Chief Rhodes showed up and you just naturally took the Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And is that just because it was just ingrained in the culture there, or is that the way you guys ran it, or was it specifically because of your training? Like, where did that come from, and how can we learn from it to ingrain it?
It was intuitive with us. I mean, Todd and I went on hundreds of fires together. Chris and I went on hundreds of fires together. I don't think we all three went on but a few dozen, if that. But I mean, when Chris was Battalion 3, I was Battalion 2. We were running together. Then he was Division, and then when I was working with Todd, we were always beside each other. So I mean, it was a every week occurrence that we were on a call. And if I got on a fire with Todd that it was his first due, I didn't even turn on the street. I went on the street behind.
Oh, okay.
And came in another route, and like I may have had to go through somebody's yard to get to the back, depending on what neighborhood it was in. But yeah, I always went to the back unless I heard something, that was deviating, if they had a victim coming out or something like that needed some attention.
No, I like, to me already, that seems to have been one of the things that set this up to have the outcome that it did was the division of command, or just the intuitive division of command that you guys see.
A lot of intuitive communications, implicit communications that we didn't even have to talk.
A couple points I want to really reiterate what Todd said earlier. I'm a firm believer in the incident commander seeing the structure. We're blessed in Atlanta. We have a command tech that tracks our movements on the board for us. But even if you're a chief operating by yourself and you can bring your mobile board, you're just going to lose so much situational awareness if you can't see the structure. Obviously you don't want to be circling the building and do the old like that, but find a good vantage point where you can plant yourself, you can see and understand. You got to see, smell, and taste it to really make good decisions. And to Rhodey's point, by policy, the second chief was the safety officer, but we used them tactically because that was, in my opinion, and all of our opinions, a lot more advantageous to the outcome of the incident. Was using them in that tactical role. And again, another thing it brings up is, some of these departments love to move people around. We'd all worked together so much. We had that intuitive knowledge of what each other was thinking. And these departments that hopscotch people around or switch officers, whatever, you run the risk of losing that or not having it at all.
No, that's beautiful points. And as we progress through the story, especially more and more, it becomes apparent how much of a difference it makes. Audience, please throw your questions in there. Sam is grabbing your questions. I'll probably run through the fire and allow more story to be told, and then plug the questions in when it's either A, pertinent, or B, at the end, and bring out the best ones. So keep throwing the questions as they pop up in the chat. Sam will grab them, and we will throw them at the panel. So back to the fire. It's in place. Everything's going on. The dormers come in, and Todd, you had already called for the second alarm. It hit a rip. It hit a rip.
Yeah, we already had second alarm people there. Clark was on part of the second alarm assignment. I literally was, as fast as I got bodies, that's as fast as I was giving them to Wessels and Rhodey to put to work in all reality.
And that was strictly based off the size of the structure?
Size and the volume of fire we had.
Okay.
And then when I got a full visual of the I saw both sides and I saw the dormers, I made the call to evacuate the structure at that point. And everybody got out.
At just approximately how far into the incident were we from your arrival?
God.
And if you don't,
10:43, it was declared a working fire at 10:17. So you're looking at less like 25 minutes roughly.
Okay. Enough time for a couple cycles of work cycles, breathing on them bottles.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And one of the things, and again, it's another learning point, especially for young incident commanders. Ego, some of that was ego driven. I did not want to pull the damn plug until I saw what I saw. And I know Chris didn't want to pull the plug right away. I know Rhodey didn't want to pull the plug, but there also comes that time of what's going to be beneficial. And it was no longer beneficial to keep our people inside that house. With that much fire we still had, I was not seeing any really good change in fire conditions whatsoever on the Alpha side. Rhodey wasn't saying anything that was going to drive me to keep it in there. So when I pulled the plug, it seemed it was the right call. I have no doubt, never regret pulling the plug on that incident. And the mere fact that, with Chris in the front, Rhodey in the back, and then they're just accounting for bodies coming out of this house because there's a lot of bodies that have to come out of this house at that time.
Okay.
And none of us ever had trouble when we said come out because we rarely did. And so if we were saying come out, it was actually a lot of times the crews were already self-evacuating.
Gotcha.
For various reasons.
So it's not like you had an early hook.
No, I mean, we knew our crews and we knew what they could do. And I think we all knew building construction and fire behavior well. And it wasn't that we were taking any unnecessary risk.
Right.
It's just that, I mean, we knew what our crews could do. And we knew what 1 3/4 inch, we knew what 2 3/4 inch would do, where some people would just see a lot of fire and automatically go defensive or pull people out early. We would give them a shot at, deploying the resources and then reassess.
Okay. Give them a shot to make a dent and then figure out if you.
Especially until we get the primary search done.
Yeah.
After that, we all were like, come on out if there's nothing to save.
Sure.
Yeah, and at that point, the searches were completed. At that point, when the dormer started to kind of, sink into the roof line and losing slate roof, flying a fire, and and I know the guys were killing themselves because I knew everybody personally on that ground, every firefighter, every officer, and these were all pretty top shelf guys. This wasn't like scrubs of your organization. These guys were all firefighters. These were all your guys. You go, man, I hope if I have a fire, I got Clark there, and I've got this guy here, and I got this guy here. And we pretty much had all those guys there that night. There wasn't a lot of makeshift stuff going on. This was a lot of really, really good, busy company firefighters that were getting after it. And they were getting after it hard too.
Squared away companies doing squared away tactics.
100%.
John M. Sullivan wanted to know, was visibility decent when attack crews made the second floor?
Clark?
Yeah, it was all in the attic then. So we got to the top floor and you could see really well. Visibility was never actually an issue on that. I can't speak for first alarm guys, but by the time I get in there, you could see pretty well.
Okay. And Adam Melke wanted to know, how long did it take to complete a primary search in a house of that size?
What it took them, and as far as it being declared, are probably two different things, because it was so big and it was chopped up a little bit. It took a while for them to get it all the way done and confidently relay it back out.
Sure.
Again, it was late. It was later in before we started kind of piecing the meal. This place was even vacant and under renovation. It was way late into that scenario.
Gotcha.
So the family eventually showed up to, see what was left of their house go down. So
it was balloon frame. Do you guys have basements? Was it a basement structure or?
Not on this one, but we do have basements. Yeah.
Okay.
Atlanta has a lot of basements.
But not on this structure.
Not on this structure.
Okay. Awesome, man. No, it's amazing. Okay, so we've made it to the point where you've called for defensive operations. You're pulling everybody out. Everybody is coming out. And who's taking it from there? What was the next series of events?
Well, first thing we do is we did our PAR after everybody's out. I hear a lot of bad PAR traffic. You don't call for PAR. You let the firefighter, you let the company officer give you the PAR. Our guys knew. We drilled on this. I gave the order, all units evacuate the structure, give me a PAR. And then I shut up. David and Chris kind of managed making sure they had accountability. And then as units exit, engine one's out of the structure, PAR 3. Boom, I check it off. And then we just run down that list. And then we go defensive. And those guys probably have more of an advantage point on the defensive. We just started dumping water. David has a better idea of what he had on Charlie. And Chris has a much better idea of what they had on the Alpha side as far as what they were doing defensively. All I did was call for defensive operations, and those guys kind of managed it from there.
So you got PAR. Everybody was out. You went defensive.
Yes.
And how long were you flowing water at that point? How long did defensive operations take place?
It was over 40 minutes.
Okay. At some point, fire under control?
Yes. The bulk of it, except for one small area on the second floor that we couldn't get water into.
Gotcha.
And that was David, help me out. That was, the building had like an L.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where the bulk of the remaining fire was. We had set up a ladder truck on the Alpha side. It wasn't super effective, but it was minimally effective just because of the distance offset from the road and elevation, everything. But it did get a fair amount of the fire on that main roof line of the house. But Rody, you can maybe speak to the fire that was remaining in that L.
Yeah, a lot of the roof had burned off, and so there was fire on top of the ceiling, where the roof debris was, and that was kind of our last little troublesome spot. And that's when I got, Engine 6, which was Clark's company, and asked him if he thought he could get in there and kind of take a look at it and see what we needed to do to get to that fire. And it wasn't a lot of fire. You know, it was just a small little like 10 by 10 area that was, you know, we just couldn't get to it. So
Just being stubborn, right?
Yeah. So Clark and I had a conversation, and his captain and a couple guys on the crew, and I said, "Hey, get in there, see what you can see, check it out, and if you can't get to it, that's fine. We'll find another way, but just go in there and kind of scope it out and see what you can do." And they started in, and I'd kind of forgotten about the windows for a second, and then watching Clark sort of have to weasel his way through the window, I was like, I don't like that. And I started to say, hold on, let's get the window cut out. But it was knocked down enough to where, yeah, you know, I let him go on in. And again, that was one of those go with your gut. So as he'll tell you, he was thinking the same thing. So they went in, took a line in, and started trying to work on that spot. And I was concerned with the floor underneath them, so I went in underneath and took a look at the kitchen area, and it looked good. And when I came out, some of the cornice started falling down near where the ladder was. And we had another fire a few years prior where some cornice fell and a guy got hurt. And I guess that was the start of some, you know, some more intuition. And I said, you know what? It's not worth it. You guys come on out. So they started working their way back out towards the ladder, and that's when it collapsed.
Oh, wow. So you mentioned go with your gut. When you saw him wiggling through the window, and Clark, you said he alluded to you feeling the same way when you were wiggling through the window.
Yeah. So I was kind of almost had to kind of low profile through it. And I remember thinking then, you know, if something did go down in there, it would not be easy to get back out in a hurry. And so it was kind of a bad feeling in my gut. But like he said, visibility was good. I could see, you know, from there, you could see really well in there. There was no issues with visibility. I almost didn't even mask up to go in. And so, yeah. So as far as going in there, that was the only issue. But I did have a gut feeling that I ignored and kind of later regretted.
But it wasn't a warning bell or nothing that you ignored. It was just like man, this is hard to get through. I should be careful.
Feeling,
yeah.
Just an uncomfortable feeling that I should have paid more attention to.
Nice. No, yeah, no. So collapse happened. Who wants to take us through their perspective on the collapse? Go ahead, Chris.
Back up for 1 second.
Yes.
Thing that Rhodey made the decision to do, which ended up being really critical. But actually, two things. You had gone defensive, obviously, but when we decided to put people back in for manual overhaul, and I don't call it going offensive because, again, we were just overhauling, but Rhodey and Todd had the foresight to put a RIT back in place and have the guys go on air, because what's our default in the fire service when we do overhaul, right? Nobody wants to go on air. But
no.
So calls that really ended up making a huge critical difference in just a few minutes.
No doubt about it. So stood a RIT back up because the crews were going back inside. Is that just the way it always is in Atlanta, or is that a discipline thing? Is that a personal choice?
Personal choice. Well, I hate to say it that way, but I don't know if everybody would have reestablished RIT, but we did.
And we also, one of the assignments they got was to get a saw and cut that window out, which was behind the guys, but we knew that needed to be done. So part of their assignment was to get a saw and cut that window out. And when I came out from checking on the floor condition, that cornice fell, and then I noticed they hadn't even started to cut the window because they were waiting on somebody to bring a saw up, and it was a long way from, back to the unit to the street. I think they had another unit bringing it up to them. And that's when I said, hey, you guys come on back out. And again, no arguments. They started, moving back towards the window. Thank goodness, because it got them closer to where we could enter. and then the entire ceiling of the second floor had all the weight of the slate. And again, we don't go to fires in those kind of buildings very often,
Right.
and if at all. And so that really wasn't a consideration, thinking about how heavy that slate was, and then the mesh from the wire lath trying to break through, pulling down on that caused some extra stress on the roof. But when it came down, I mean, it all came down, and it was a rumble that vibrated the ground, and it was sickening. And I knew that at least 3 people were in there, and I knew they were coming out. And the captain of Clark's unit was still outside. He was at the bottom of the ladder, and he immediately went up the ladder to check. And one of the guys was okay. The other one was pinned up against the interior side of the courtyard on the wall. And then they reported back out that Clark was completely buried. And so at that time, I called a Mayday and told Todd that I would no longer be the Charlie side, division, that I'd be managing the Mayday. And I think I requested another unit and a couple other pieces of equipment. And then guys started going to work to get them out. We also put another line in place because that rush of air
Sure.
kicked the fire back up. And so we wanted to keep a hand line, a couple of hand lines to protect the area so that they could work. And they went in and went to work, and they had some struggles. We were still trying to get the window removed. And, another frustrating part was every saw that came up, and we were still running your typical grinder metal blades at the time.
Sure.
And they were just disintegrating. Every saw that got put up there, the metal blade would disintegrate. And we would call, I think at one time I told Todd, send me every metal cutting saw we have on the scene,
Gotcha.
to try to get through. And they had chainsaws interior. But basically we got the 3 or 4 biggest guys that, and they happened to be assigned to the right units. And some of these guys were ex-pro football players, and through removing some debris, Captain Ware was sort of running the show in there. Those guys were very, very calm and organized, and got the ceiling debris lifted up just enough to, and just in time, which I'll let Clark take over from there. But it was 16 minutes was the total time, which is pretty impressive considering the thing. And we never got any airbags. We never got any Hearst tools or anything like that in there. I had seen some 4x4s that were 12 feet long for the construction site, and I think I'd shoved a couple of those up in the window for levers. But other than that, they were just digging, brute force and whatever tools they took in with them.
Boom. So I'll switch over to firefighter glass at the time.
Yes, sir.
And give us your perspective. I don't know how much your perspective as far as, but the collapse happened. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so like Chief said, we were inside working. He called us back out. We made our way to the window, and it was pretty sudden. No real warning at all from inside. Like he said, it was just a pretty loud, sickening noise. I remember thinking after it happened that I was pretty surprised that the first floor was actually holding us up, because it was just kind of an impressive amount of weight. But it was just very, very quick and sudden, shocked for me. And, I was pretty much pinned from, well, the only thing I could move really was from my right knee down. I could move my right knee down was not buried, so I could kind of kick it around. I remember thinking, maybe I can move this thing around, and, Mallory and Samuels will see it and at least know where I'm at. They can start digging. And
So helmet stayed in place.
Yeah, helmet stayed on.
Mask.
Mask was sealed really well, actually.
Okay. Okay.
Which is
He was on his
probably-
back.
Yeah, I was on kind of laying on my back on my left side.
Okay.
The majority of the weight was on my face and the front of me. So, and like Chief said, they got lines going pretty quick on me because there was stuff burning. I remember, I think probably if I hadn't had my mask on, that would have been an issue for me as far as just water on my face. So I'm glad I masked up, long story short, even though I didn't really think I needed it at the time.
Sure.
And one of the things that happened immediately after the collapse happened is my viber alert started going off. And so I remember thinking then, all right, well, the clock is ticking now. And so they worked. I heard the saws crank up and they started working on the windows. And like Chief said, I didn't realize it was issues with the blade at the time. I just thought it was just ignorant assholes that didn't crank their saws in the morning and then didn't checked off. It's kind of what was going through my head, but kind of an emotional roller coaster of hearing saws working. And I thought, all right, they're making their way in, and then it would stop. And so, anxiety would build again. But I guess
so the only thing you could move was your right leg from your knee down.
Yeah. So I wasn't
even
able to call Mayday or.
Okay. Yeah. Even if you wanted to, you could not have called a Mayday, correct?
Yeah. Chief did that for me. He was actually the one that called the Mayday. I couldn't. And, so yeah, that's all I could do really is just lay there and, just manage the air that I had left to deal with.
So, well, I'll get into your mindset, but how far from the point of where you entered, you came in through the window, correct?
Yeah.
How far from the point of entry? This was from Patrick Red, who asked this question. How far from the point of entry were you trapped?
I wish I knew exactly. That's something I've never talked to the guys about.
It was close because he was coming towards the window. It was like less than 4 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was very near the entry point.
Yeah.
But where he was working was probably 20 feet away. So had he not been coming towards the window, it would not have been good.
Right. A lot more coming. If you hadn't just called everybody to get out.
You're right.
No, absolutely. So you stood up that RIT team. How many are usually on a RIT team when you guys do it? Just a single rig, or is it 4? Is it
Now,
3?
engine
And a truck.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
it was either 7 or 8 at that time.
Oh, wow.
And they responded to the collapse, but I didn't get an immediate reply from them after Rhodey came over the radio, and I made sure via radio traffic they were clear. They had a firefighter down, and his first transmission, he was breathing air and was already interior. That was in a matter of seconds. Those guys had already scaled and got inside and started trying to work on the rescue, which was going to be a lot more than just go in and do your standard firehouse drag where you drag the guy around and high five each other about how great you are at, saving firefighters.
Right.
So
right.
they knew. I think everybody in that rear end knew about it. And so I thought that was, again, those are the positives at the end of this definitely outweighed a lot of the other bad things or the mistakes made. And the mistakes were not made by Clark or any of the companies. The mistakes more on some decisions on, a lot of my part in a lot of different ways on that fire scene.
And at that time, we had, we got reports Samuels and Mallory were hurt, but okay. And I remember telling Wessels came around to the back and was like, what do you need? And I think you got the squad started back en route. That's our heavy rescue. But I remember telling him, I think we lost a couple guys. I mean, that's how massive the collapse was. And when they said Mallory and Samuels were good and got them out, and one of the hardest things to do was not to let Clark's captain in the building. And he wanted to go bad. He probably still hates me to this day for not letting him go in. But it was like, I didn't want that emotion, going, with him. I wanted him to stay outside with his other 2 guys that were hurt. But I until I think it was Captain Ware radioed that Clark was moving his leg, I thought he was gone.
So let me Go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I walked on you. Start over.
Oh, I want to throw a couple things, but I want to get back to Clark. One of the guys on the RIT disconnected to save his air in case he needed to give it to Clark. That's how hardcore and dedicated these guys were. And, again, everything was in line with who our RIT was that night. But I don't want to say too much. I want to get back to Clark.
No, I want to get to Clark's mindset. So you're trapped. Try to walk us through what you can remember of your mindset of what went through your mind laying there, unable to move everything but your leg.
Yeah. So initially I was actually pretty panicked. I mean, it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. It was the last thing that I thought was going to happen. And then me and Mallory and Samuel started trying to holler back and forth to each other. And that kind of amplified the panic that was going on. Plus, it was causing me to breathe harder. And my vibe alert started going off pretty quick at that time. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do anything on my own. So I started trying to focus on just conserving air at that point. I tried a few things like skip breathing. Skip breathing didn't work at all for me. And so I just really kind of at that point just focused on trying to bring my emotions to a point where my breathing would just slow down. And I just kind of focused on basically just stretching that bottle out. And that was something we had, trained on a good bit through the years, just air confidence drills and, gear workouts, different things like that. So it was something I was familiar with, and it really seemed to work better than anything else. So I just kept rolling with that at the time.
And granted, he could not unhook. So
Yeah.
had he run out,
Right.
he couldn't unhook.
Wow. No,
and nobody could get to him to unhook him.
Matthew Berkins wants to know, Clark, do you remember seeing or hearing anything that preceded the collapse, or was it just too sudden?
Absolutely nothing. And I was actually pissed that Chief Rhodes called us out.
Typical firefighter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got this. We're almost done. I love it, man. Great questions from the audience. So 16 minutes. And like you guys said, you had the all-star RIT crew happen to be on deck. I say happen to be. It's not an accident. But what was the challenges they faced, and what ultimately ended up getting you free and out of there?
Yeah, the weight and just it was 2x8 floor joist or ceiling joist and true 2x8s and then all that slate and decking and stuff was on top of him. And
wow.
So they're trying to tunnel in to get him and just moving. And finally they cut enough to be able to manhandle the debris,
right,
and lift it up at the exact moment that it needed to be lifted.
Whew.
So yeah.
Clark, didn't they reach your face and your face piece at one point, Clark?
No, I don't remember that. I don't know if they got to it.
They said he was on air. That's what they reported back. I guess they could hear the vibra alert.
That's probably what it was. I know at one point, right before they had gotten me out, the vibra alert had stopped. And my mask was sucking in my face when they pulled the roof off. So it was actually, like Chief said, it was
couldn't have cut it any closer.
Yeah, it was pretty close. And that's what I tell people, like, I didn't survive this because I'm a great fireman. I survived this despite some mistakes I made. So like they said, we were defensive for 45 minutes or so before all this. And we were wearing 30-minute bottles at the time. And I never, ever once took the time to go back down to the air truck and top off my cylinder. We had been working inside for, you guys probably know better than me, but I would guess probably, what would you say? We had been inside initially probably 10 minutes or so. Not long, working hard. So in a 30-minute bottle, 10 minutes working hard. Never took the time to go back down to the air truck, top off my cylinder. So I went back and tried to just be in a position where we could go back interior if it went that way. And, it did. So I went inside and worked for another, I would guess, 5 minutes or so, if that. So, I gave the guys that got me out 15 minutes. I guess it turned out to be 16, but 16 minutes worth of air, which if I'd gone down and topped off my bottle, I would have given them a full 30 minutes. And I have no doubt that I could stretch a 30-minute bottle to an hour if I needed to. Plus if I'd paid attention to my gut and maybe cut the metal casement windows before I went in instead of just ignoring that, that would have saved another 10 minutes probably getting in. So, it's just a lesson for me on my part. I was in a very complacent mindset period in my career then. I had enough time on the job to think I'd been to enough fires where I was pretty confident and had it figured out. So I did not take this building seriously at all. Not like I should have anyway, and not like I would now. So just a couple things for thought.
No, absolutely. Physical condition that you were in at the time.
As far as what?
Were you physically fit? Were you out of shape? With it's 10 years ago, 11 years ago? I have to do math in my head, but you look like
maintain a decent level of physical fitness.
All right, Carly.
Yes.
Super humble guy. Let me just lay the groundwork for this. He was one of the crazy beasts on the job as far as doing on-shift workouts, in-gear workouts, developing workouts, challenge himself, getting the crew to work out, or if they didn't want to by himself. He was known throughout the department as workouts. And I think we all have the consensus, if it were not for his mental and physical toughness, the outcome could have seriously been different. Clark is so humble. He's not going to, he was known and still known throughout the department for the intensity that he prepares himself for this job.
Wow.
When he said complacent, I wouldn't say he was complacent. I would say all of us, especially in the busy companies, you get overly confident, but he was certainly not complacent. And another lesson here, Clark had a funny feeling, Rhodey had a funny feeling. Just because your chief or your officer sends you to do something, don't feel, you can say, hey, maybe you didn't see this or that, So firefighters have to understand, a good chief or good officer isn't going to mind being questioned about something that could potentially they might not have seen.
No, absolutely. And thank you for the clarification, because Clark does seem to be very humble at saying, well, I've stayed in shape, but, and I appreciate that. I do, but I do want to know how much your fitness played into the survival. And obviously it according to Chief Wessels, and Todd's shaking his head also. So it seems like that massively played a difference, at least according to everyone's perception of the incident. There was a good question here I wanted to throw in because it's on topic. No, I don't see it. I think someone might have deleted it after they typed it. Okay.
Hey, Clark, and I don't want this to get away from a teaching point for other guys, is the fact that with everything that he said, he recognized his emotional state.
Yes.
Or somebody who hasn't trained in gear, hasn't done certain things, isn't mentally prepared for the job. Complacent or not, I think all of us have that, like Chris has said. But the mere fact that he recognized his emotional state and immediately realized he needed to stop yelling out, stop trying to move, and just lay there and breathe, saved his life. There's no doubt in my mind. I tell people that all the time when I'm doing parts of this program. I just did at FDIC this past year, and I'm totally honest about that. Would have been that guy that you can't blow off the couch until the shift change, or it's that brand new rookie who doesn't have enough experience yet. That's a line of duty death that night. Just no doubt about it, it's a line of duty death for us. So, I hate that it was Clark, but I'm also thankful it was Clark it happened to.
No, and I understand that sentiment. Grateful that it was, but also, absolutely. And I'm sure Clark,
anybody, but if it had to be anybody, I'm glad it was somebody who
made it out the other side.
A lot better prepared than he's letting on in some ways.
No, phenomenal. What? Someone asked, Jason Anderson wanted to know, what injuries did Clark, what injuries did you think you have while you were trapped? Did you feel like you had sustained an injury?
I did feel some burns going on, mostly on my ankle, but nothing bad. I ended up getting some skin grafts out of it. Spent a couple of weeks in the burn unit. But at the time, I was just really tunnel visioned in on my breathing. I was totally focused on my pass device, or not my pass device, sorry, my Vibralert going off. And it was like years later when I was thinking about this call, just at a random moment in the middle of the afternoon for no reason. I remember thinking how quiet it was when my Vibralert quit. And it hit me, like at that point in the call, my pass device would have been just absolutely screaming in everybody's ears. And I never remember hearing it. It was just a sense of just quiet when my Vibralert stopped. So no, at the time I didn't have any sense of injury other than, my ankle burning a little bit. But I did end up with some skin grafts on my legs. And so I guess that's just a testament to how powerful your brain is at certain times. I guess it can be a blessing, and a defense mechanism at the right time,
No, and just you recognizing the panic and focusing on your breathing is an amazing testament. I mean, seriously, I've seen people just in training, lose their cool completely, just in training where there's no danger whatsoever. So it's amazing. Metro Atlanta Fools has a great question for you, Clark. And they say, I know you hit on this briefly, that bottle conservation drills and some training from the past helped you get through this. But is there one training or class that stuck out to you the most or more than the others?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to put a plug in for Georgia Smoke Divers here. Before this had happened, I went through the program in 2009 and washed out on Wednesday on 5 hose. And even just going through and making it through to a Wednesday, I have no doubt played a huge part in just my growth and personal mindset and ability to deal with just stuff that's going to go down on this job. So I'd probably have to give, credit to that first.
No, that's phenomenal. No. And what's phenomenal about the statement you just made is the fact that you said just attempting it and making it to Wednesday had that big of an impact on you. So that's a pretty strong testament. Anything else about the rescue, the RIT intervention that needs to be touched on?
When he came down the ladder under his own power, that was like the greatest sight of all. And his first words to me, I said, "You all right?" And he goes, "Yeah, ready for another assignment." And I was like, "Get your ass on the stretcher. You're going to the hospital to get checked out." We didn't know. I mean, he didn't look like he had any injuries, but turned out he had some pretty severe burns.
Yeah, that's his first words to me too, because I met him at the bottom of the driveway. I said, "You all right, brother?" "I'm good, Chief." And he jumped in the back of the ambulance. I was like,
Right.
"Oh shit, we dodged a bullet here." And then come
Yes.
later, when I finally got down to the hospital, realized how badly it was really burned.
How close it was.
And Mallory was hurt pretty bad too. He was, he had some torn ligaments and all in his foot that he was out. Gosh, 6 or 8 months.
Oh, wow.
It was out actually longer than I was, I think.
He had to have a couple surgeries.
Johnny Mac 83 says, where was RIT stage that night? Since the response was perfect with the remaining air supply, were they in the front or more to the back with Chief Rhodes? Where was RIT set up?
They were in the back for that part. They were in the front for the initial attack because that's where everybody went in. There wasn't any crews that had entered through the back until we went to the overhaul stage.
Gotcha. So there you go. So not only did you reset RIT back up, but you reset it back up, and it wasn't just checking a box. You actually set it up ready to do work, man. So and wow. Blaine Griffiths says, Clark, did this fire change anything about how you operate on the fire ground and or in training as the backseat guy?
That's a good one. I think initially when I came back online, we had actually a few really good challenging fires when I got back, and it did affect my mindset a little bit. I tried not to let it affect like my actions, I think, and just growing through that. I hope anyway that it hasn't changed how I act on fires, but it made me apprehensive initially for a while.
Sure.
I think overall the main change it's kind of forced on me is that, like, and I don't know why this is because I wasn't lost in there, but like whenever I go into a building now versus then, I'm just like almost just anally obsessed with just like knowing where that next way out is going to be, whether it's a window or through a wall or a door. And it's just really kind of heightened that awareness in me personally.
Just a hypervigilance to your
Maybe
location.
so. Yeah, maybe so.
Okay.
That would be, that's the only thing I could really talk on as far as training. I don't know that it's changed anyways on how I train. I would say just being around other guys and watching how other people train and getting ideas from them has probably been responsible for changes than anything other than calls, or this one. I don't know that you can train for this call, honestly.
Well, it sounds like the preparation work that was done definitely made a difference. If it wasn't specifically for this, Patrick Red said, Chief Rhodes, what was said on your radio transmission for the Mayday call? If you can remember.
I remember. I can tell you.
Go ahead.
It was solely emergency traffic. We got collapse in the rear. I believe we got one trapped. And it was because I think it was that suddenness. It wasn't that standard. Well, the SOG says, or the manual says, you say this. It was immediately because I have the radio traffic. Emergency traffic. I believe collapse in the rear. I believe we got one trapped.
Yeah. And I do remember coming back and saying I'd be managing the Mayday.
Yeah.
And we've put all those audio files in the article. They're embedded in the article in Fire Engineering this month.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have a link up yet for that?
I'm not sure if it's actually I know it's in the digital edition, but I don't know. It should be.
Digital came today.
It usually goes on 15th. Yeah.
Yeah. Digital came out today.
Cool.
Okay. I'll try to get a link and throw it up here into the YouTube chat so people can click on it and go check it out. That's awesome.
I just want to throw in about Todd and Rhodey. Impeccable command presence. Not only the incident, but for the Mayday, there were no elevated voices, nobody, cool, complete professional throughout the entire Mayday. And that plays a huge role in the efficiency of the operation and also in the confidence of all the people that you're commanding. Because if you lose your cool, it's just going to go south from there. And both of them throughout that entire 16 minutes, starting with the initial Mayday call, total professionals, total composure.
Ice cold. That's when Rob Fisher has a great question coming at the Chiefs. Edwards, Rhodes, Wessels. Was this the first time you had managed a Mayday? What would you do differently?
I don't know if I'd done anything differently. I think I fed off the incident after Rhodey's initial radio traffic was literally a gut punch. Because I did not, obviously I didn't see the collapse. I didn't feel the collapse. It was just all of a sudden everything was kind of clicking the way I thought it should be. And then boom, everything changed on it. I mean, instantly changed. I transmitted back and told all units to hold traffic. And because we had done so much training, I know in the 5th and the 3rd Battalion, we had done a lot of drills on survival and RIT. Nobody said a word. I mean, when you play the audio, there is a literally gap of dead air, and that dead air is solely by design. Nobody says a word. David's getting all his shit together in the back. Red team's getting all theirs together. And now my job is just to point and click and whatever road he needed. And I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I never once had to say repeat back to Rhodey. You'd say, command, I need this. And it was very clear, concise. And I just said, okay, I got this. I'm going to send you this. I need another ladder. Here's another ladder. So I think a lot of that was that as far as if I changed anything, Rob, it would have been not to even consider going back in that building. That'd be the one thing I would have damn changed.
Sure. Hindsight.
I would say the one thing I would change is, when you're changing modes or phases in an operation, if you even have an inkling that you could put people back inside the building, just like Mark said, that could be a benchmark on the radio. Make sure everybody's got their tank squared away, and things of that nature. Make sure that if we are going to go back and put people inside, that we've covered all our bases and we're good to go. Another thing I would want to say, we obviously still time on this call. Typically, we like to send people back. You know, I know you get back to the firehouse, you're third dude, whatever, we're going to cut you loose. It doesn't hurt to keep people on the scene, even in overhaul, because, you know, it can bite you until the last stitch of hose is loaded back on the truck. You know, something can bite you. So that would be the thing I would change, is just making sure, like Clark said, those little things where we might miss, you know, making sure our gear squared away to recommit. And one thing I was going to say too, I try to handle the radio traffic with our dispatch for Todd so that he could really focus on communicating with Rhodey. And like they said, there wasn't a ton of communication anyway beyond that initial.
Right on. No, and Dana Larkin had a great question here, but I think you basically answered it, which he asked, had you done Mayday training so you felt comfortable with the process, or was this an eye-opener to how deficient you were in that area of training? Is there any, you guys pretty much said that you'd done a lot of preparation for this, yes?
Yeah.
Or was there any eye-opening thing about this?
No, it went pretty much the way, you know, we trained for it, other than we hadn't done a ton of training on getting somebody out of like that magnitude of collapse. It was mostly, you know, somebody got burned and, you know, you were going in, do a dirty grab, get them out, and maybe a few obstacles, but nothing to that magnitude, which we thought we were going to end up needing air. Like we had airbags and hydraulic tools and all that coming to stage. It actually made it back there, but we didn't use it. And I think all of us, I mean, we picked this thing apart afterwards and did our own after action report. We did training with the companies. One thing to note is the shift before this fire, I had both of the companies that ended up being writ at a vacant house doing vent inner search training on the second floor. So they were laddering going in, obviously a little different, but same process.
Right.
But we critiqued it, and Atlanta had a history, actually still does, unfortunately, of we use manpower to overhaul these buildings that need backhoes. And it was so we could get people back in service and get back to the, get back to the station and not sit somebody out there all night long waiting on Public Works or whoever to show up. And between the three of us, we didn't let that happen again with the building that was that far gone. And if we were flowing water 20, 30, 40 minutes inside, we knew that water had done damage. Obviously, the slate roof was a factor. So we started, I know I can think of 3 or 4 fires off the top of my head that we had one tower ladder left in the city. And that was our overhaul truck. We'd call that tower ladder in and just wear it out and wouldn't send guys back in. But I think a lot of departments do that. And I'm not talking about your standard, overhaul because you're an apartment building and you're going to reoccupy 5 of the units. I mean, this thing, the roof was burnt off, and they renovated it and all. They didn't have to do a complete tear down, but they're really, we weren't, the only thing we were saving was us time. We weren't saving any of the structure. So that kind of changed our mindset after that. And we actually put that in our report that, we shouldn't use our people for overhaul on these buildings that should be torn down our level.
And
wow.
3 of us followed that mantra until we retired. And like Rhodey said, sadly, it really didn't catch through the whole department. But that was a really big lesson learned was, what are we really doing? What are we accomplishing by doing manual overhaul in a building? We bombarded with aerial or master streams for, 20, 25, 40 minutes. And the answer is nothing. But we have all the time we need and we have the resources. Rotate a fire watch until you, like Rhodey said, you can get the proper equipment out there, make an assessment. And, people started at first, we got some pushback, but at least the guys on the shift understood where we're coming from. But, firefighters are hard headed and it just didn't take root, department wide. And that was a huge part of it. And another point is, about RIT in Atlanta, on the run card, the second engine, third truck are assigned RIT. And that could be anybody in the mix, any companies in the city. So it really exemplifies how important it is that everybody take those skill sets seriously. And, they're really not RIT skill sets, they're basic firemanship. And the better you are at your basic firemanship, the better you're going to be if you're called upon to rescue one of your brother firefighters. And also, in this situation, it really didn't apply, but an active RIT. You're not just standing around like shepherds. You're making that building more accessible, more tenable. Burglar bars, laddering, stretching a line for them, in case their line blows out or another company comes up and needs a line. If the RIT's already stretched one and has it charged, that's saving time. Be an active, proactive RIT, and it can make all the difference.
And it definitely did here.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah, Daniel Queen wanted to know, how much did the ceiling actually weigh? How much can Clark bench? So.
Not that much.
It's pretty good. Not good enough.
John M. Sullivan said, guessing the lath ceiling distributed the weight like a net and then it all went in at once. Is that basically how it played out?
It came straight down.
But
it didn't kick any of the walls out.
No.
But I mean, it was pancake.
Textbook pancake. Douglas Hecht wants to know, question for Glass. Now that you're a captain, do you pass this experience through training with your younger firefighters?
I'm pretty anal about training. We do a lot of it. And we do a lot of RIT training, not to be RIT, but just like Chief said, firemanship skills.
Right on.
But I don't know if this call is specifically influenced that at all. I don't know. Maybe it has, maybe it hadn't. I don't know. But we are pretty active in what we do at the station on a day-to-day basis.
Alan wants to know, what I'm curious too, was the area that collapsed close to or the same area where the dormer was sinking?
No.
Unrelated? Okay.
Yeah, the dormer was on the front, and then this was back in the L.
Okay. Jeff Stone's good question. He said, when you have that many firefighters simultaneously exiting the building, when you pulled out the initial attack on multiple sides under emergency conditions, well, this is also, but the emergency conditions, when you had them put, was the first time under emergency conditions, or was it just a pull out?
It was kind of a 50-50. It was time to go, and I wanted them out.
Okay.
Right now.
How do you, and I know you touched on it, but how do you account for everyone?
We left hose.
Oh, okay.
Left the hose in, told
So
them to
it
come
was
out.
okay.
Yeah.
How do you account for everyone in rapid succession? Is it by company? And I think you kind of touched on it earlier in the fact that they just naturally do it as they clear and give par, correct?
Yeah, your policies should be very specific, and if you'll listen to other Mayday traffic stuff, it drives me nuts when I hear the incident commander constantly going, engine 6, you got a par, engine 6, you got a par, engine 6, you got a par. You just gave the evac order. These guys got to work their way down 2 flights of stairs or down out a window, down a ladder. You've got to allow some, and again, it's kind of like we talk about reflex time on our attack. There's a reflex time for these guys who have worked inside that building to work their way out. Now, there's this, again, more of a buzzer in my head. When I start hearing when I start getting par, now I'm triggered going, okay, check, they're out. I haven't heard from truck 1. Command truck 1, then I'll start my follow-up. We did not do that. Every crew that exited immediately gave truck 1 out, par 3, engine 6 out, par 2, whatever, numbers are. But yeah, it's more of this for Chief Stone, just checking that off, knowing who you got in, and then you better damn well know who's coming out, and you don't lose that accountability as they're exiting the structure.
And how is that just the way that par discipline is for you, for your battalions?
It was for our battalions. I can't vouch for the city, but I can vouch for our battalions. It was, I know the way Rhodey trained. I know the way I trained. I'm a huge believer in that fireground discipline level at the company. Company officers have to be disciplined on the fireground. If I tell you Division 1, your ass better be on Division 1 when it goes sideways. And everybody, I think, was very disciplined on their par and then on their assignments given to them.
And to Todd's point, when you become a chief officer, you're a watcher, you're not a doer anymore for the most part. and everything seems like it takes an eternity. And you've got to have that maturity and that command presence to be patient and let the people do. The more you badger them, the more it's going to create confusion.
Yeah.
You
The more they want to throw that radio across the room.
And when you're doing time's flying, but when you're watching a task, it seems like it's just an hourglass dragging. You have to have that self-control to just let them work, let them do what they're doing, and know that they're going to get to you at the appropriate time.
A couple more questions, and I'll wrap up with final thoughts. But Patrick Red wanted to know: was there any lifting equipment involved? But you said no airbags were used, or not mainly just lumber for levers, probably. Yes,
Brute strength.
Brute strength.
Now they had to cut away stuff, and then they, were able to move it. But
It was chainsaws, you said.
Yep.
Okay.
We never got any of the lifting stuff up in there.
Okay, because he asked, would it have helped if there was cutting, or was it just cutting and manpower? And you brute force and man cutting, yes.
And by the time the squad got there with the airbags, because they had about a 10-minute response back, so it was only 6 minutes after their arrival that he got out. So they actually brought a Stokes basket with airbags and hydraulic tool up, but they were starting to get some headway. Gotcha. And you know how that changeover would have been. That'd have been a whole nother operation.
And without a doubt. Final one. This comes from Garrett Crotty. He wants to know, Clark, have you done anything different or changed anything with your in-gear workouts from this that you wish you would have done beforehand to be more prepared?
I started doing pretty regular gear workouts in, say, 08, 09, and I haven't let up since. So, no. Just don't let up.
Don't let up. I love that. I love that answer. Love the question. Love the answer. Any final takeaways or things that didn't get touched on that you want to bring up? That I mean, you guys absolutely crushed it walking us through the fire and the takeaways. But I want to throw it out there of anything that I've missed or anything that hasn't been asked.
I think we did one thing is and kind of hear it on the radio a little bit if you download some of the links that Rhodey and them have got up on fire engineering. But everything was being doubled up on. When they asked for one ladder, I sent two. When they asked, I went ahead and had our advanced life support engine company moving up. So when they brought Clark out, if he needed immediate advanced life support, we already had those companies up there. He was asking, I knew his issues with the saw, and fortunately, that was a huge rapid change in the organization after the fact that we actually got all good blades on everything in the city, and that was not the case at the time. But doubling up on everything, and if you'll go, and I went back and I listened again recently, a huge miss is I did not call back a full second assignment. Because we'd already released a lot of the second alarm units when everything went to shit. Some of the second alarm guys were leaving. We had other activities going on in the city. And that created some other issues, obviously. But I should immediately request another full alarm to come back to our site because the guys were just getting taxed with the rescue. And, we saw the fire going on, and the guys were just doing incredible, just unbelievable work. What those guys did to get him out of there was amazing at the end of the day. But yeah, double up on everything. If you think you need it, send it. And if you don't need it, we'll pick the crap up later.
Right
and
on.
Listen to your gut, because I knew better than to send them in through that window. I didn't like it when I saw him scooting through there. He didn't like it, so neither one of us listened to our gut. And if he'd have said, "Hey, let me get this window out, Chief, before I go in," I would have said, absolutely. That would have been reassuring. Or if I'd have said, "Hey, before you go in, take that window out," but again, you're getting in there to take a look, see if you can do something with it. The fire's out. It's in that overhaul time, especially, that's a dangerous time. And we had a line of duty death in Georgia with a lieutenant in Waycross taking a firefighter back in the front door just to show him like what happened and got into a collapse. So it's like, it's not a time to let your guard down. So always go with your gut. I went with it on pulling them out.
Right.
But I didn't go with it on the window. And I mean, I tell people all the time not to, take the window all the way out, not just the the bottom panes or whatever, take the sash and everything out, but it was inconvenient to take it out, and we wanted to get done. So kind of let that guard down. And Clark wanted to get in there.
Sure.
So he
Yeah.
weaseled his way in there.
And I just want to challenge what Todd said. Really, that responsibility of calling more equipment fell on my shoulders. You know, I was the ranking member on the scene, and you know, we did call for the heavy rescue back, and I honestly can't remember if I didn't do it because we had 2 other incidents kicking off in the city, or it just was oversight on my part. I don't remember, but that responsibility fell on my shoulders, and it didn't happen. And fortunately, it worked out the way it did. But to Todd's point, call help before you think you need it, you know, because you got to remember that reflex time of getting the help there. And my last thing I want to say before we kick off to Clark is, again, I said it earlier, basic skills are going to save the day. And we're not only doing it for the citizens we protect, we're doing it for each other. You know, every firefighter should look at themselves in the mirror and say, have I done everything I can do to fulfill my role with my skills and my abilities? Because you never know. It could be your first day on the job. It could be your last shift before retirement. You never know when it's going to be called upon.
Love it. I love it. I can't. Clark, final thoughts or any takeaways we've missed so far, or anything you want to add?
You know, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'll say that these 3 guys here, if I could have picked 3 chiefs in our department to be on that scene, would have been these guys here. And then additionally, the crews that I was working with that night were some of the best crews that I've worked with in my 20 some odd years of working in the fire service. And so that just shows you that, you know, shit can go down anytime, no matter how well you're prepared for it. And, you know, you just got to be willing to just push through that and accept that, and don't let that weaken our aggressive search culture.
Well said, man. The whole scrap has been enlightening and I can't say thank you enough for all 4 of you taking the time to break down this incident. Luckily, it has a good enough outcome to where it's a great one to analyze and break apart without having the tragedies tied to it, even though it was mass suck into the FaceTime when it was resolved. And that's a powerful thing. So with all that being said, thank you so much for breaking down the Lullwater fire and sharing. Me and Chris were talking on the phone today, and I said, nothing beats experience. Nothing beats experience. And the only thing that we can do with that experience is share it with as many people as possible. And you guys took the time this evening to do that. And I can't thank you enough for it.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish I've been sharing this story for a while, and I'm hoping that a lot of our brothers in the city of Atlanta have a chance to kind of listen to this, because a lot of them, probably a lot of the new guys, definitely have never heard of it. And then even guys that were there, probably, you know, we didn't talk about it. The companies talked about it, and then it kind of just went away, and it deserved a lot more evaluation on everybody's part, not just our part, but the organization as a whole could have just solely bettered the entire fire department on all 3 shifts throughout the entire city to take away lessons learned, the good things that happened on that fire, the bad things that happened at that fire, and really benefit. And I hate seeing when we run away from that in the fire service. And I still think we do. I still see a lot of firefighters run away from their mistakes versus, hey, this is on us, guys, but we're not going to make the same mistake again. But that's the history of the American Fire Service. You know, we're not inventing new ways to screw up. We just keep doing the same shit over and over and over again. I'm hoping that if more people would share these close call stories, and especially when it's a close call that could have been avoided, and it could have been so easily avoided.
Powerful. Who else? Anybody else? I don't want to step on anybody. I am going to have to go back and listen to it, because part of being the host is I don't get to absorb the answers as much as I'm thinking about the next question and everything else. But I will say this, you know, anytime you study the line of duty death report or a near miss, you're always looking at the dominoes or the links in the chain, whatever analogy you want to use, the dominoes that lined up, that led, you know, when they actually, or the Swiss cheese model, if you want to, you know, when all the pieces of Swiss cheese line up and the thing makes it through all the holes. But my big takeaway so far, without going back and listening to it, is just the small things. Your guys' incident command, like the practice of the basics of incident command, and the way you guys said intuitive, that was involved. The standing up of RIT when you went back to do overhaul, not just standing them up and checking a box, like I said earlier, but standing them up and putting them in position to where they were able to make a difference in time before he ran out of air. The physical fitness, just dig in and do it. That's probably my favorite sound clip of the night right now in my head, from Clark earlier. And so much to digest, and I just can't say thank you enough for sharing it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity as always, Corley.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to kick you because we can't do 5 questions for firefighters with 4 people. It'd take like another hour. So what we'll do is we're going to do one of the questions from the 5 questions for firefighters, version 4.0. And basically it's Jobtown. It's time. You're in route and responding. You got to think of the scene from Backdraft where he's slapping that cassette into that tape deck. What song are you playing while you're en route? And of course, this actually goes on the official Weekly Scrap Spotify playlist. So I hope you cherish. But I'll start with Todd and say, what song are you playing while en route?
So mine would always change, based on, and I'm probably more metal than everybody else, like new metal stuff. But it'd be Welcome to the Circus, 5 Finger Death Punch.
5 Finger Death Punch.
Hey, that shit, crank that up one time, and everybody's going to be blasting that next time they get on the rig.
Welcome to the Circus. I think
Welcome
that might be
to
the
the
first 5 Finger Death Punch. I think that might be the first one. First one on the list.
We'll get way bashed. You're about to get your board's about to light up about that.
I'm not even sure that's the heaviest because we had some. What was it? Killed the paramedics or called the paramedics? Who was that? Was
that one.
no, it was. I've never heard of it. It was some intense. That was Chief Pascal out of OKC, and he likes to listen to some dark metal. Okay, Glass, you're up.
I'm going to be for Shipping Up to Boston by the Dropkick Murphys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Murphys. Absolutely love it. Is that the first time Boston's been on there as the Shipping Up to Boston? I think so. That's a great choice. One of my favorites. Goes to Chief Rhodes.
Back in Black.
AC/DC. Yes. I'll actually have to give Max points for the mouth guitar, which is better than air guitar. And Chris Wessels.
I'm gonna the Last of the Mohicans when they're going into battle.
Okay. Yeah, that's a throwback because you had that one on your scrap, correct?
No, I did. I forget what I did on my scrap.
I thought we talked about this, or was it? I've done a lot of these shows, so they do blur. But I had a conversation with someone about the Last of the Mohicans soundtrack.
Yeah,
I've only had that conversation once. I can't be that many people that love that soundtrack.
Remember?
All right.
No, I did Volbeat for my other scrap.
Okay.
I figured with the little kids, you'd had a Disney tune picked up.
I was thinking of the same thing.
Frozen. Let it go. Let it go.
Everybody's got little kids read Dogman books. I could get a bunch of great little tunes off of them.
There you go. Officially 4 more songs added to, or actually 3 new songs added to the Jobtown playlist. And that officially brings Scrap 288 Mega Scrap Golf to a close. Todd, Clark, David, Chris, thank you so much for being with us this evening. If someone wants to get a hold of you, does anybody want to share? I'll go in order. Todd, if someone wants to get a hold of you, ask you more questions, reach out to you, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, I'm anal retentive on email, and it's real simple. It's Todd Edwards, the number 6 at Yahoo.
Todd Edwards, number 6 at Yahoo. Mr. Glass.
I'm Glass0738 at Gmail.
Perfect. Chief Rhodes.
Instagram is the same.
Sorry.
David.Rhodes at ClarionEvents.com.
Wessels.
CH West, so that's CHWES at Comcast.net.
Perfect.
I've got an open account on Instagram.
That's it. You guys have crushed it. I will quit chapter. You guys have already done enough. I'm not even going to say anything else. I will say this. Coming up next week, Chris Slayer, followed by the return of the one and only Nick Papa. So it's going to be a good time. Mark your calendars. You don't want to miss them. Enough jabbering for me. Let's get to the after party. The guests are invited to the after party, but they are all East Coast. So we'll see who shows up and gets roasted. Audience, thank you for showing up. You make the scrap absolutely magical each and every week. Without your questions, the scrap would not exist. Thank you for tuning in. I love you all. Remember, mutts don't scrap. I hope the tones stay silent unless it is burning. Everybody, stay safe out there.